They looked at me for about half a second and decided exactly who I was. Not out loud, not with words, but you could feel it in the air. The hoodie, the beat-up sneakers, the way I didn't demand anything. In their minds, that meant I didn't belong. And yeah, I've learned that when people think you don't belong, they feel entitled to move you correct, you humiliate you. What they didn't know what made this whole thing explode later was that I had come there fully prepared to be invisible on purpose. That morning, I walked into the airport like any other tired traveler. No assistant, no security detail, no polished image. Just me, a carry-on, and a seat assignment I'd paid for fair and square. I had spent most of my life being underestimated, and I knew the value of that. When people don't see you as a threat, they show you who they really are. And I needed to see the truth before I made a decision that could change a lot of lives, including theirs. At the check-in counter, the agent barely looked up. Her eyes flicked over me and slid away like I was a problem she didn't feel like dealing with. When I told her my seat number, she laughed. Not a friendly laugh. The kind that says, "You've got to be kidding." She typed my name slowly, expecting the system to correct me. When it didn't, when the screen confirmed everything, her face hardened instead of softening. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just a boarding pass shoved across the counter and a sharp reminder not to block the line. That should have been my first warning. But I kept going because I wanted to know if this was a fluke or a pattern. I boarded early, found my seat settled in. I wasn't nervous, I wasn't angry yet. I was curious. That curiosity lasted about 5 minutes. He showed up loud, confident, already irritated like the world owed him a smoother day. He looked at his ticket, looked at me, and snapped his fingers inches from my face. "You're in my seat." Not a question. A statement. I showed him my boarding pass. He laughed. Told me there must be a mistake. Told me people like me didn't sit there unless someone messed up. I stayed calm, put my headphones back on, and that's when his entitlement turned into something sharper. He called for the crew like he was summoning staff at a private club. The lead attendant arrived smiling that professional smile that disappears the second it doesn't need to perform. She didn't ask what happened. She already knew who she believed. She demanded my boarding pass, took it from my hand, studied it like it offended her. Everything was correct. She knew it. And still she lied. Said there was a mix-up. Said his status mattered more. Offered to move me to a comfortable seat further back like she was being generous. I said no, calmly, clearly. I explained I paid full fare. I explained their own rules backed me up. I explained I wasn't moving. That's when the mood changed. Her voice got louder, colder. Suddenly, I wasn't a passenger anymore. I was a problem. I was warned. Labeled disruptive, threatened with removal. And the worst part wasn't the threat itself, it was how easy it was for them. Like they'd done this before. Like they were practiced at deciding whose comfort mattered. The captain came out already annoyed. He didn't want context. He wanted compliance. He told me to grab my things. He told me crew instructions were law. I realized in that moment that reason wasn't going to save me. Evidence might. So I pulled out my phone and started recording. That's when everything tipped over. The attendant lunged toward me, trying to knock the phone away. The man beside me called me dangerous. The captain ordered security. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't resist. I sat there and said clearly that I was being removed from the seat I paid for. When the officers arrived, they didn't ask questions. They grabbed my arm and told me to get up. I said I wouldn't walk. If they wanted me off, they'd have to carry me. They did. They dragged me down the aisle while people stared, phones out, mouths open. My wrist twisted behind my back. My phone fell still recording, capturing everything. I told them they were hurting me not emotionally, physically. They didn't stop. The man who wanted my seat laughed and filmed like it was entertainment. When the door closed behind me on that jet bridge, something inside me went very still. Not broken. Focused. I stood up, fixed my glasses, and made a call. Not to complain, not to threaten, just to activate a chain of accountability that most people never get to see. Inside the plane, they thought they'd won. Champagne was poured. Jokes were made. Then the engines shut down. Clearance revoked. The aircraft stopped on the runway. Confusion spread like panic. Within minutes, the entire operation unraveled. Flights delayed, crews grounded, executives scrambling. The truth hit them all at once, and it hit hard. When the plane was towed back, I stayed right there at the gate. Lawyers arrived. Records were pulled. Statements reviewed. The man who had laughed stopped laughing. The people who dismissed me stopped meeting my eyes. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult anyone. I didn't need to. I let the facts speak. I let their own actions tell the story. By the end of the day, the company that thought it could quietly humiliate one passenger was facing consequences that couldn't be smoothed over with apologies or terminations. Contracts snapped shut. Clauses activated. Decisions made long before that day finally landed. Weeks later, the footage was everywhere. Not edited, not framed to favor me. Just raw, calm words against loud entitlement. The public didn't need a narrator. They knew what they were seeing. Months later, the courtroom confirmed what that aisle had already proven. Accountability isn't about who you think someone is. It's about what you do when you think no one important is watching. I didn't win because I yelled louder. I won because I stayed grounded while they exposed themselves. And that's the part people argue about. Some say it was too harsh. Some say it was overdue. Some say power shouldn't be used that way. Here's what I know. Respect shouldn't depend on how you dress, who you know, or how much noise you make. If a system only works for people who look a certain way, then the system is broken. And broken systems don't need patience. They need to be fixed. So I want to hear from you. Was what happened justice, or was it excess? Have you ever watched someone be dismissed because they didn't look right? Or have you ever been that person yourself? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Debate it. Disagree. Tell your story. Because silence is what lets this kind of thing keep happening, and conversation is where change actually starts.